Why do I feel like this? What's happened to me? Oh, oh, oh. Am I ready? Ain't no doubt. Am I ready? What you talking about? Am I ready?
Hi. Hello. Welcome to my next episode of the podcast with me, Steph Mindset Mentor. Please, first of all, do not judge. My Christmas tree is up. I just would like to say this first and foremost. This is my last year in my amazing home that I have lived in Glasgow for 8 years. And it's the first home I've ever had on my own. And this is a very special place to me. And I think this is going to be like a bit of an emotional podcast, to be honest, just given the subject and the fact that I am moving out to start a completely new chapter of life abroad, and then we'll see what happens. But I'm packing everything up in my house, and yes, it's early. I understand that. I understand if that's a bit crazy to people that I'm putting it up at this time. But to be honest, I couldn't care because this is my last time seeing it in this very house. And it fills me with so much gratitude and joy just to see it, um, up. And yeah, walking into my living room tonight just filled me with a sense of complete gratitude and love. And I will miss this home so much. And yeah, that's why it's up so early. But yeah, this podcast I have been meaning to film for quite some time. And I didn't know when was going to be the right time to do it. Just didn't know when I was going to be called to do it. But I was reflecting back and thinking that I should probably do it soon. And I felt like tonight was a good night to do it. I I'm obviously moving. I'm starting a complete new chapter of my life. As I was packing up to move out for when I move abroad to Costa Rica, my landlord also contacted me just to say that he was actually selling the flat of 8 years I've lived here, and that was another signifier to me and another little nudge from the universe just to say that the time for closing this chapter is definitely coming to an end, and it's supposed to come to an end. So yes, I just thought, while all this is in my mind and fresh, I would like to film this podcast. So it's a bit of a vulnerable one for me, and um, I think it is going to be a bit of a tough one, just because this is basically my story, and it's basically me being so vulnerable and real and really laying out me as a person. And I'm doing this because I am now living my purpose as a coach and starting out to help other people because of the way I've felt most of my life, and the fact that if I can get feel better and get better and be this version of myself that I never ever thought I would ever get to be, then I am helping in the biggest way possible. Because if I have suffered with these feelings and these battles internally, and I can help anybody, then that is everything to me. And that is truly, truly my mission in life now that I know that this is my purpose. So that is exactly why I got into coaching, because of how I felt grown up and the things that shaped me as a person and how I dealt with them and how I am now as a person and what got me to here. And it's just night and day completely from the person I was to who I am now. So yes, this podcast is a love letter to myself, to my younger self. So I have my little letter here. So I'm just going to look at some points for to keep me on track. But so just first and foremost, this video is not for anyone to feel sorry for me by any means, at all. This to me actually is a beautiful experience and a beautiful practice to reflect on. I was thinking about it the other night in bed, and I just burst into tears and felt so much gratitude for where I am now and what I've achieved. considering the person who I was before, and I'll go into that a wee bit more in detail. This person who was completely the polar opposite as to who I am now, and it's took me such a long time to really find out who I am at my core, and in itself that is like a very sad thing to say that it's taken that long, but I do truly believe in divine timing, and I believe that everything happens exactly as it should. So I truly believe that. So it's taken exactly how long it's needed to take, and I was meant to learn these lessons exactly when I was, and I was meant to go through every experience in my life, every relationship, every friendship, every situation in my life to bring me to this very point in time. So I truly, truly, truly believe that. So this isn't me sitting here wanting sympathy from people. Like, this is just my story, and this is just giving you from my point of view, how I felt and how I think maybe this could resonate with other people. And this is exactly why I do coaching, and would want anyone to reach out if they feel any sort of resonance with what I say today in this podcast. So I'm going to try and keep it not too long. But yeah, so my story as a younger person, a younger child, little Steph, I guess. I've always been And I've always known that I have been completely and utterly different. And I know some people can say, like, I developed anxiety from this point on in my life. Like, they can remember something that happened specifically that happened to them, maybe from an event or something that's brought them great anxiety. For me, I had that from such a young age. And like, I I'm a great visualizer, so I have almost a picture perfect memory where I can recall events and things from my life and things that I felt and saw. And I'm very in tune with my feelings. And I know a lot of people that know me know that I am such a sensitive person, and I'm very, very sensitive soul. And it's only because this is just who I am as a person, and that I can't change. I can't change that. And I don't think I would ever want to change that, because it's given me this empathic, almost subtle language with other people that they might not even be able to see in themselves, that I can feel. And I've always felt that. And it's not just with people, with animals, with environments. Like, I've always been able to feel so deeply, to my detriment sometimes. And yeah, that's me as a child growing up. I I just remember from being so young, like young when you're that young, usually like your life is filled with like happy memories and things like that with your family. And that is definitely, like, I had so many amazing memories. Amazing. My family life when I was young was the best experience I could ever ask for. And I'm so grateful to have had the experience that I did. And I know there's many people out there who aren't as fortunate to have experiences in their life like how I did, and had a close knit family. But I remember being worried about things like war. I remember being worried about things like animal abuse and, all these things that I would see. And I was maybe like five, 5 or 6. And I can remember like sitting with my papa at the time, my grandpa, and being like physically like in fight or flight mode as as this tiny child, being like, maybe it was obviously from things I've seen on the TV, but in my head, I'm trying to make sense of this and thinking, why, like, why? And I would question everything so deeply, like, and it bugs me when people are like, when I'm thinking about stuff and people are like, it's just not that deep. But I'm like, but I'm a deep person. I'm a very deep thinker, and I feel so deeply. And every time somebody says that to me, I feel like they're completely misunderstanding me. I just feel completely misunderstood. And, yeah, not everything needs a deep, thought, but like from going back to when I was young, like this is how my little mind worked. And it was flooded with what would have been cortisol at that age. And, you know, thinking of these things, thinking of the worst case scenario, thinking of, you know, fearing like, the death of my parents, like very young, and like just fearing like a war, and fearing for people that were in war, and like countries and children that were like having to go through that. And like I was such a young child feeling that deeply for all these people. And I remember one time vividly, I was on the couch and my mum came through. I'm actually shaking like talking about this, just remembering, like it takes me back to almost that time, and I feel it so vividly. Like that is just me as a person. I remember watching the TV, and I must have been about like 6 again, very young, and there was an advert on, and it was to do with like the RSPCA or some world organization to help animals in cruelty. And this particular advert, there was a bear, and it was being chained, and it was being hurt. And I remember being so upset, and I remember like screaming and bawling my eyes out, and my mum running through, and she was like, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I couldn't even speak. Like I was like so sickened to what I'd seen, and my mum had to justify it in some way that it was just like something innocent, like to obviously calm me down. And I just always remember like seeing that and thinking that there's just so much injustice in the world for people and animals. And ever since I was like a really young girl as well, instead of like birthdays or Christmases, I would ask my mum and my dad to pay for like a service that you could donate money to animals, or things like that. So RSPCA, I volunteered with a friend when I was really young as well, when we were just very young, when most people would be out like these days drinking and all sorts. We actually attended voluntary sort of these days where you could go and help the animals and learn about them, and anything to do with like abuse and injustice of animals and people in the world. Like I just felt it so deeply, and I have always been that way. So thinking back to it, like as a very small person, and maybe this will make sense for people who just think that the stuff I post is just so over dramatic and things like that, but it runs way deeper than just like not being able to get over like something in your life that maybe like other people can get over, because that's not what it boils down to. Unfortunately, this runs much deeper. This is a deeply psychological issue. Like these are things that we feel, and again, I always talk about authenticity, and that is me being authentic from a really young age, and that's me just getting back to it just now. That's me finally clawed through all the crap and weeded all the shit out of my life that has kept me misaligned and off my path that I'm meant to be on in my purpose, and get back to exactly what I want to do. And I've never felt so happy, and I've never felt so sure in my life to what I'm doing now to help people similar to me. These, people like me who have felt like this, or feel like they've had childhoods riddled with anxiety for one reason or another. And there's obviously other stuff I can get into in a little bit that also didn't help me growing up, and how it shaped me growing up and my identity, and balanced me that kind of way. But yeah, this is exactly this is why I'm doing this podcast. It's for people, anyone out there that resonates with this. And I truly believe that we could all be doing with writing a love letter to our younger selves, and just reflecting back on our journey from where we were there to who we are now, and actually just link it all up and see where the pieces have joined, and see if we really are you know living that life of like true authentic purpose, and how far we've come as people, and the things that we've went through that we thought we would never get over, how they've shaped us today. I think it's such a great tool, and I always hype up journaling so much, and think it's such a great thing to do. So this is basically like the biggest journal page in your journal you could do to yourself, is like a love letter to yourself. It's like the best thing you could ever write to yourself. You can look back on it with, such as what I'm doing today. Like I'm looking back and I'm just seeing like where I am now to where I was, and it's just seeing that gap just being completely bridged, and everything just coming together in alignment is just like the most amazing feeling ever. And I'm just so grateful, and I'm so like glad I could do this today, and film this podcast, as hard as some bits might be. It's all just something I'm immensely proud of. And I want to just say thank you to everyone as well who reach out to me and say that my words and the things that I speak on are almost on behalf of them. And that honestly just blows my mind that people thank me for that, for just being me and just speaking my truth. And if it helps anybody, if it helps someone get through a bit of a hard day and makes their day a little bit easier, like that is literally like everything to me. And I just want to help transform people's lives and make people feel that they have genuine hope and things can be better and you can get to the place that you want to be and you can become the person you want to become. So yeah, like thinking back to it now, like as a child, like this was like before anything sort of big time happened in my life that would have been of, like any kind of bigger issue. I had all that already in my body, in my mind, in my tissues of my cells. Like I was just this very, very sensitive girl, very empathic and intuitive. And another thing that's just came to mind there was we went to see a circus when there were animals involved still. This was like a long time ago. And I seen that there was children going up and getting pictures taken on top of the elephant and getting, posing with the elephant. And I remember my dad being like, you go, like, obviously they knew I loved animals, so they were like, go, you can go get a picture. And I just remember like looking into the elephant's eyes and just being like, no, like, no, 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 I'm not doing this. Like, this isn't right. This is not right. And what is absolutely crazy is I had a birth chart reading, and the person who read my birth chart looked at everything and was like, "You literally in a past life helped people uh, with like you were like a justice, you were like a freedom fighter, you were like a you fought for people rights and things like that." And I just thought, oh my God, it just gave me chills because I was like, that is literally like how I do feel. And I have felt like that from such a young age. Like I've always wanted to help. Like I've just always wanted to help. Always, always, always. I've always known that. And this is probably the reason why my life has worked out in these exact events to lead me to this place, to then make me realize that this is the job I want to do. Like I want to work for myself because I know me best. Like no one else knows me. No one else knows the feelings that I've had in my head at times, and no one knows exactly how hard it's been personally for me. Like that's one of the things I want to just move on to just now. After growing up, I've just got like a few pictures here just as we're on the subject of like that sort of love letter to yourself. So this is me when I was young. That's little me. Don't know if you'll be able to even see that properly, but that is little me and my dad. And I think that's on Christmas. And very happy memories, very, very happy memories. Another one, me and my dad. There are obviously our ones, me and my mum as well. I've just got a couple here. Really happy memories. I had such a beautiful childhood. Like honestly, like that is what made everything so much harder for me when my mum and dad separated. So this is the part of my story that coaching clients might be able to see. Okay, so this is her story, and this is where she can connect with someone else because I have I've been through my share of things as well. And so when I was about 15 when my mum and dad separated, and I had a younger brother who's about 6 years younger than me. And I remember, sorry, I have a cold, so if you hear me sniffling, I apologise deeply. And we had such great memories up until that time. And then I just remember like my family was my everything. And I just thought it was always going to be that way. Like we just had such strong, amazing times. And like I just didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. And then, well, I did in the lead up, but then I didn't. Like you always think, oh, like this will never happen to me, especially having such a great childhood. And for some people, and I know like loads of people who have separated parents, divorced parents, things like that, they've been through like a lot worse, like, and they are fine and they've picked their lives up and moved on from it, and that's amazing and that's great for them. that's brilliant. And that just shows that they had other factors in their life supporting that helped with their resilience. Me and a lot of other people who I know are going to resonate with this, it's not the same. It's not the same. And it's just been so hard. And we've had to spend a lot of our lives picking up pieces of, you know, internalization of events in our life that have went wrong or have went a way that we've not foreseen. Big massive changes in our lives that we weren't prepared for, we weren't ready for, we didn't know how to deal with, and already feeling like a person with little to no resilience or coping mechanisms or things like that. And being so young, like I have, I study, like I work with kids, and I now know like how we know from studies and science and seeing all this on the brain that how detrimental it is to have things like this happen to young children's minds and bodies. So we know now with children that have experienced these things that are called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, from a young age, go on to have, if they don't get support and they don't get help from it, will go on to have, things that affect them growing up. And that looks like a lot of the things that I coach people on today. And it's, very low self-worth, low self-esteem. They could have addictions, they could have, there's so much that goes into it. It's just not as black and white as you either get over it or like you don't. Like there's so many little defining factors as well that play into play into people's characters and their personalities and how it shapes them as people. All of these things make us who we are and form our critical beliefs about ourselves. So knowing how I felt as a child makes so much more sense as to how I handled things when my parents did separate. And obviously, I've had very open and honest conversations with my parents over the years about everything I've felt and everything I've been through. And at times, it's still a bit of a struggle to speak about in some things, but only because family to me is such an important part of my life. And it's something that I've always wanted myself, is to have like a big family. And that unit just makes me so happy. And me and my family we have the loveliest relationship now. Like we all love each other so much and we all are there for each other and we get on great. But there obviously was a point in time where sadly that wasn't the case, and there was a lot of chaos and disarray and confusion and blaming myself and internalizing so much, and that really really put so much strain on me as a child, and having all that on my shoulders, like the weight of the world on my shoulders. My parents separated. My brother took it very hard. I tried to be strong for him. And on top of that, my dad ended up falling into addictions with alcohol, sadly, and that lasted quite a long time. And a lot of that was very, very hard to watch. Very hard to watch. Wouldn't wish it upon anybody. And severely detrimental to me personally. Like I just couldn't take it. I just couldn't. I found it so hard to deal with. I found it so hard to see, this person who was my complete rock, who's a pillar of health, like, bodybuilder, my family who were so much a unit, fall apart and derail. And just, I was left with all these questions as to why. Like I couldn't figure it out. And like that alone is a super scary place for like a young child to be. And yeah, it's hard to talk about. It just always takes me back to that place. But I just can resonate so much with people who struggle um in their lives, having gone through events that have made them feel this way, and who do end up, blaming themselves. And and just sitting for years and years of their life thinking, like, was this because of me, or is this because I'm not good enough, or is this, could I have done something different? Like, so many children, like, I mean, some people can get on with life, and that's great if that's your kind of way to cope, and you are able to just bounce back from things. But there's so many people who can't, and I can see it everywhere, and it's sometimes not apparent to a lot of people, but I can see it in so many people, where it doesn't just have to be like events such as like a parent with alcohol abuse or drug addictions or gambling, or um there's just so much, like, anything to do with life that is detrimental to us and traumatic, and that we haven't had the support, or the help or guidance to deal with our emotions. Like, they're just pushed down. They're pushed down, and they're they're pushed so far down, and you go down there with them. Like, you are just operating from like a complete shell, like, level, and it's so heartbreaking to for me to see people struggle. Like, I just find it so deeply hard. And growing up, I was very quiet, and people kept affirming that to me. They kept telling me I was quiet, and then growing up, I just feel like I had this massive I had this massive anxious attachment style as a child anyway. A lot of people don't get that till they're older, and they find that out in romantic relationships, because of their trauma and their struggles actually comes out fledged in romantic relationships. And that's when a lot of people learn what their attachment styles are, because you could be one way with your friends, you could be one way with your family, but as soon as you enter into a romantic relationship, they trigger every single part of your fears because of what you have lived. And for me, that was abandonment. So for me, um, looking back, I massively struggled with that, because of obviously seeing my dad going through that with alcohol, my family members not coping, and my brother also not coping, and just feeling that this immense pressure to put on myself to do better and to be better, and to, like, I just wasn't good enough. Like, I wasn't good enough. This was my fault. I made it all about me, and I really struggled with that feeling of abandonment. And if I was with someone that wasn't perhaps feeling like, I didn't feel that abandonment off them so much, like, I would self-sabotage it first, because I was terrified that they were going to leave me. So I would almost set it up myself so that it wouldn't hurt as bad. And and I know a lot of people could resonate with that. And that is like a normal part of, like, life, going through breakups. But when you feel the way that, like, I have felt, or like other people might feel the same. And this is genuinely why I want to help, coach people, because I grew up internalizing all of this, and I didn't have a voice, and then I didn't go on to use my voice because I just didn't feel good enough. And that got worse as I grew up. I didn't speak up for myself. I hated confrontation. I didn't want to upset anybody. I didn't want to have boundaries. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I'd literally let people walk all over me, because I just didn't want. I felt like I needed someone to stay and to show me that I was worthy enough. And then on the other hand, I would get with people that didn't respect me or treat me so well, and I would still hang on in there, and literally, like, almost disrespect myself to want to show them that I am worthy, like, to prove to them. And these people weren't worthy of my time, and yet here I am trying to convince them that I am worthy, and the whole time that I just couldn't see what I was doing and the patterns I was acting from. And this all stems back from, sadly, like the things that I have went through and how I internalized them, how I didn't process them because I didn't know how to until recently. I didn't know how to until seeked coaching myself, seeked therapy, seeked CBT, and I started doing really deep inner healing work on myself to really find this person who I've always wanted to be and I've always known has been down there inside, deep inside, and really bring that person out and bring them to life. And that has taken me a lot of time because I've had a lot of things to reflect on and decode and unpick and unpack, So, I'm sitting here in front of this camera doing a podcast that if you told me I was going to have a podcast, I was going to have a business, I was starting on my own with no experience, none. Moving abroad, I hated traveling when I was a child, had massive travel anxiety as well. That's now moving to Costa Rica. I've not only visited the country of my dreams, I'm now moving there for a chance to live there, and live in alignment to my complete dream life. If you were to say this to the girl who almost failed her HND graphic design qualification in college because she wouldn't stand up and do a 10-minute presentation to the class to speak, I honestly just, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing this love letter to myself, because look at what you can achieve and accomplish so long as you do the work and you want to strive to be your best self, and you can put all these things in your past to bed. It's not to say that it doesn't hurt to talk about them still, because it does. It does still sting for me a little bit, just because I do just have so much compassion and so much empathy towards that little version of myself who was clearly just struggling to understand all of life's big feelings and emotions and not really know how to vent that in a healthy way, or how to even deal with the things that I dealt with, the things I saw that I never thought I would see, the feelings that would come up that I never felt. But something, these are all the exact things that have propelled me to become the person I am today. And I truly believe that if I hadn't gone through all this, if I hadn't been this little person that cared so deeply and kept themselves up crying at night for wars in different countries that had nothing, to do with me as a child, but they did to me, I felt like I took accountability for, the world's problems at like the age of 5. Like, I had a lot on my shoulders, and um, a lot of that cortisol and anxiety hormone running in my body, which probably explains a lot of my illness, because it's been deep rooted in there for so long, and that's something that I constantly work to get better and to release. And that's exactly why coaching is my purpose in life, to help people similar. And I know so many people going through such a hard time, and I just want to let you know that it can get better, and you're not alone. And you may feel this type of person and you might want to be this type of person, and I'm here to tell you that you absolutely can. Like, you absolutely can. You can do it. I think when I look back and I see that little person, I just look to her and I just smile, and I get upset, because I just think it's not even like tears of sadness, it's tears of complete and utter like gratitude, as to thank you. Like, thank you for being you. Like, thank you for being you. And like, just think about it this way, like, you have had all of your best and worst days. Like, you have had yourself through them. You have literally held yourself through the best and worst days of your life. And growing up in my teenage years, I blocked so much stuff out. I blocked it completely out. I didn't deal with it at all. And it's the worst thing you can do. And a lot of people might think they're fine, but I can guarantee you, in other parts of their lives, by looking at it, I can see where the little insecurities are creeping in, or, you know, how they feel a certain way about something comes into play in another part of their life that they might not we operate 95% subconsciously. So let's just take a minute to think about how much we're actually just operating, from our pasts. And it takes a lot of work to rewire that, but you can do it, and it is possible. And I have so much love and gratitude for my little inner child and my little inner self and that little person. And I have so much, like recognition from my family that they did the best at what they could at the time. They're not bad parents and they completely love me to death, and they still do. But it's not even like it's like their fault, because you need to understand, like, when people, or any situation, I'm not just talking about that situation that I was in, like anything people projecting onto you, like hate or bullying and things like that you've gone through in your life, like the more that you can actually look at that from a place of compassion and realize that that's literally just a projection of how somebody feels. It's not anything to do with you. It's all a projection. It's all a projection onto you as to how the people feel at the time. Any mistreatment, if they weren't happy with themselves, you know, there's just so much that comes into play. And at the end of the day, if you can feel compassion in those situations, then you are literally healing, and you're literally paving the way for, you know, help for someone else. Because if they come into contact with you and you think this way, you could be the change in that person's day or life, just by treating them better, just by getting it. So, yeah, always remember that. And I always thank myself for being so empathetic and so kind to other people and animals, and just finding so much gratitude in things that people wouldn't have even had a second thought about at that age, or at that time. I am hugely thankful for the person I was as a child, because I've now got full circle back to her, and she's taught me how to be soul led and lead the way to my life now and to what I'm supposed to do, my purpose in life. So I have her to thank, and I could only see that by stripping away all these layers and really deeply reflecting. And I think I invite everybody to do the same thing. Yeah, write yourself a love letter to your younger self. And also, a great idea, keep pictures of yourself when you're small. I've got some other ones hung up in my mirror or stuck onto the mirror. And anytime you go to look at yourself in the mirror and speak bad, negative dialogue out or internally, just look at that little person and think, would you ever speak to someone like that, that age, that size, that innocent? Like, would you ever speak those words to someone else? Never mind yourself. No, hopefully you wouldn't. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm just so very thankful to where I am in life now, and I just feel like I truly am. Everything's paying off. Everything's paying off. That I felt all these gifts that I've had as a young person are now being fine tuned, because I'm now listening to what's deep here for me, my truth, and all the experiences that I've went through have now aligned me to what I'm doing today. So if you can find the beauty in that, find the beauty in the things that have almost torn you down, then that is a beautiful thing in itself. So thank you. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and I will see you on the next one, which will be up very shortly. Thank you so much, and have an amazing day.